Hey boys and girls, welcome back to Munro Live. And I'm standing here with Corey looking at the brand new Toyota electric vehicle.
You're really close, Jordan.
Jordan, what did I say?
Corey. That's okay. It's muscle memory, you know?
You want to do that again? Or
I don't care.
Neither do I. Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Okay, good. So anyhow, Jordan is taller than Corey. That's how we know the difference. So anyway, I had a chance to look at this in the parking lot, and my initial reaction was, "Ow, why'd they bother with a two-tone? I can't believe my eyes." And I kind of like dissed it a bit. But after coming back, this is my second actual look at it, and I'm not driving by in another car. I'm actually warming up to the cut lines and the fact that the bumper sweeps around the wheels and stuff. And I will tell you, I did walk around it once with Jordan, and you know, when I came over here and I saw this sliding through the charge door and down here, holy doodle! Only Toyota can do this kind of stuff. It's like if that showed up in any of the design studios that I was working at, I'd be calling for an execution. But this, they made it work. I mean,
made it work.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so many different planes coming together and so many different axes, right? Like,
yeah.
For them to get that to align, a lot of people would really struggle with that, I think.
Yeah, and then we also noticed the scoops. So I haven't really had a look underneath. I'm assuming cooling?
Yes. So it's, for here? No. So here, I think they're just bringing one of the aero lines through the body line, just like they do with these ducts here.
Reduce drag.
To reduce drag, yeah. Yep.
Oh, there you go. So we look at this thing, and like I say, we've done a cursory walk around, and you'll notice here that the gaps are gigantic. But this is a trick that Toyota's used in the past. They start off with these bigger gaps, but then as time goes by, the gaps get smaller and smaller, and it's a lot easier when you're first coming out with a new build to have bigger gaps. Your eye isn't drawn to them quickly. But these guys have done a fine job at consistency, which is something that I'm really kind of interested in when I look at someone who's cranking out a car. And these look, like I say, gigantic, but you'll notice over time they'll shrink. But Jordan found something here, so we should talk about that.
Yeah, we were just looking at this backlight glass as it trails rearward to this sort of spoiler section in the back here, which is this probably painted PCBA or PCABS piece right here. And so what we're looking at is, if you follow kind of where my fingernail is running along the backlight glass, it seems to align pretty much perfectly with the edge of this trim piece. But then you see we've got a lip seal, which is helping seal out the glass relative to this D-pillar on, like adjacent to the liftgate here. The problem is that lip seal, visually, right, if you were walking up behind this vehicle and you were paying attention, you'd see that lip seal makes it look like the two surfaces just don't align, because your eye is sort of naturally drawn to the lip seal rather than the glass and this plastic piece, which do align well, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you're looking at it in CAD, right, which this vehicle is obviously before it gets launched, it looks like they align, but then you see it in production and those little things will get you.
Yeah, the other thing I thought was kind of interesting, bZ4X. What for? I mean, why didn't they just call it the Toyota electric car? I don't know what bZ4X means, do you?
I believe it's Beyond Zero, right? So their new e-TNGA platform, which this is one of the first iterations of, on the same platform as the Subaru Solterra. It's the Beyond Zero concept. So they've got a bZ3 that they're looking at bringing to the US. They've got
So it's a 4 Series, or what we would classify as a D Series? CD?
Yes, and it's like more SUV segment oriented, right? All-wheel drive, and yeah, so the 4X, I don't know, we'd have to talk more to Toyota about that, but bZ is the Beyond Zero concept.
Well, get them on the horn. We'll talk about it right now.
We'll ring them up, yep. Yeah. So we can come around to the front and take a look at the, well, I guess not so frunk.
This is not a frunk. I cannot put beer in here. Well, maybe I could. But anyways, I'm surprised. No beauty cover. No nothing.
No,
very different.
From that perspective, kudos, right? If you open it up, and I mean, they're certainly saving a lot of cost to the program in terms of not having beauty covers everywhere. But I guess what value do you place to the consumer perceived benefit of having a frunk?
None. I like, well, let me rephrase that. I think a frunk is a really handy thing, and that's because I use the one in the Rivian or the Tesla all the time. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, why would I do that? And it must mean that somewhere else has been filled up. So this is kind of an interesting arrangement here.
Yeah, so what they've done, similar to one other company that we've engaged with in the past, they've integrated their charging module and their inverter.
Oh, but we've already started to see that charging modules.
Or, I'm sorry, charger and DC to DC converter.
Yeah.
So one box system, they don't have to separately mount them and so forth. It's large, it's an expensive piece, but they don't have to separately accommodate them. So.
Well, the charger module may be going away. There's some guys that we've been talking to. We're probably going to do a Munro Live on that as well, and they've kind of figured out how to get rid of that, utilizing the inverter. I don't want to talk too much about that, but if that happens, this box is going to look a lot smaller. Yeah, as Humphrey Bogart would say.
It also looks like they're struggling maybe slightly with a impact mitigation strategy. So if you look at the tail end of it, you've got a, I don't know, every bit of probably 10 millimeter thick, at least, bracket bolted onto the side of that, which sits void, right? It's not actually contacting this stamped cup, which is part of the cowl cross member tying in the two shock towers. So structure here. So what you want in an impact event, mostly, you want this powertrain and everything attached to it to go down and to go rearward. Right. But you want it to go down first so as not to impact the dash panel. And so what I suspect is they were not getting the rotation and the right kinematics that they wanted out of this unit. So that is, well, I hate to say a Band-Aid, but that's probably a Band-Aid.
Well, it may be a Band-Aid or it may be something that was designed in, but going south is the term. You want that down. I want that not going in here. I want that to go underneath the body. But this is interesting. I'm surprised. I thought everybody was going to the lithium battery packs.
Yeah, but here we've got a conventional capped flooded lead acid, right?
Yeah,
so it's going to be heavier, taking a lot more space in the engine bay. But is it going to be less expensive in terms of the battery itself to the OEM? Yes, but for sure it's going to be bigger and harder to package, right?
Yeah.
It's more weight.
Yeah.
So. When we're talking about this whole front end area, one key tenet of this e-TNGA platform that Toyota's publicly touted in tandem with Subaru is the ball foot to spindle. So what we're talking about is if you're the occupant and you're looking at where your foot rests up against the dash panel relative to the center line of the axle, so where these half shafts come through, that they're maintaining that on any one of their variants, that dimensionally from that point inside cabin. If you were to draw an imaginary line to the center line of the axle, they're keeping those fixed. And so what that really allows them to do is the shock towers, the entire powertrain packaging environment, all of these monuments under hood that stack up in an impact event, they're able to commonize those throughout their variant portfolio. What does that mean? In essence, the engineering hours associated with developing something like this go down dramatically in terms of the portfolio, as do all of the separate impact simulations, right? So you still have to do some, you still have to validate it, but you don't have to go through iteration after iteration after iteration when that much of your front end script and package is common, right? That also may mean common cradles, common hard points and mounting points. So they've really done a lot, just like MQB, like the VW MQB platform. On MQB for VW, this was also one of those sort of sacred monuments or dimensions in the vehicle platform. So it's not something we haven't seen before, but that is one of the decisions they made when looking at e-TNGA.
Well, here's something you don't see on a Tesla. Fuse boxes have been a thing of the past for Tesla, or sorry, for Tesla, for quite some time. And I'm looking at this box, and I'm looking at how many, yikes, how many
open slots.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I'm looking at the depth. This thing's about 1 foot, 9 inches, I should say, thick, and I don't know what all is going on in there, but that's an awful lot. This isn't very Toyota-like over here. Usually, if they see what somebody else is doing and it makes sense, they'll jump in. So maybe this is a first kick at the cat, and
it is interesting, Sandy. It does seem to allude to maybe an older low voltage architecture at these car companies, as you well know, right? Just because they're launching a brand new vehicle architecture doesn't necessarily mean that the low voltage architecture is brand new either. And they're not always aligned in terms of timing. Typically, a low voltage architecture will span multiple vehicle programs and be applied
to decades of time. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I remember we were looking at a connector for an ABS module on one vehicle that we brought in, and it was from 1997. So they don't exactly change overnight, and just like the vehicles will.
Well, the problem with that is it makes you lazy. It really does slow you down on innovation. With Tesla making the announcements of going 48 volts, a lot of this stuff will be either a lot lighter, or a lot smaller, or just disappear completely.
Right.
And I really like the fact that that Tesla uses heat-sensitive circuit breakers, and you can turn them back on instead of fishing around trying to find out which fuse does what. Well, let's put it up and have a peek at what's going on with it being upstairs.
Sure. Yep, and we'll go ahead and raise this up, but I don't know what your thoughts are, Sandy, overall. I was hoping for this being a brand new architecture, e-TNGA. I was really hoping that we would see a higher level of integration, some more manifolds for the cooling system, right, if it's the first off, but who knows, maybe we'll see in a future iteration.
Yeah, I was hoping for more, but you know what? This is their Chevy Bolt.
Indeed.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we looked at the Chevy Bolt, and when did that come out? Like 5 years ago or something. And we were really impressed. And now we're kind of like, because it doesn't have a frunk, and it doesn't have this, and it doesn't have that. But they got to start somewhere, and I guess this is it. So,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's take it up.
All right.
Well, under here it looks very Toyota-alike. It's a coilover shock, and I mean, it looks like a Toyota. There's not much.
Yeah, we've torn down quite a bit of RAV4s, right? It's McPherson strut, stamp steel welded, lower control arm, aluminum knuckle, you know, as you go further outboard and closer towards that unsprung mass setup, right? You want to take weight out where you can. So they've got a forged aluminum knuckle in the outboard side there. But yeah, relatively conventional, nothing novel in the suspension, which we kind of expect coming under any Toyota these days. So the other thing, you know, I was looking at this a little bit earlier, that the whole front end strategy, they made a very, very concerted effort in this front end from a Sorb perspective. They reach incredibly far outboard, right? If you look at this stamped steel weldment, this tubular member here, which is like two C-sections overlapping one another, that goes very, very far outboard. So if you're familiar with small overlap rigid barrier by IAHS, they take the full width of the vehicle as defined by SAE, and then they measure 25% of that width inboard, and that's the line in which that barrier is going to strike the vehicle, or the vehicle is going to strike the barrier, rather. So all of these impact countermeasures, to include the cross-car beam and some crush cans, Eric, if you were to kind of go under here and take a look. All of those items are outboard. And then as you go inboard, they all sort of triangulate on some of these major cross members, one being the cradle cross member right here. And then there's a pretty large stamped steel weldment that's actually part of the body structure above that. And so as that barrier starts to come into the vehicle, what they're trying to do is keep this whole rail section from collapsing inboard on itself. They don't want that rail to move inboard, because when that rail moves out of the way of the barrier, well, the barrier goes towards the occupant home, and that's what you want to avoid. You want this to be rigid as much as possible, left, right, or in the y-axis for those CAD spinners out there. And they've made a pretty concerted effort to get that characteristic.
What's this heat exchanger for?
That looks like the plate cooler, so it's gear oil in the motor.
Oil.
Yeah, gear oil cooler. Yep.
Okay, so anyhow, looking at this engine or motor arrangement, it's not my all-time favorite, but again, this is their first kick at the cat, so I guess this is really surprised. Actually, where is there? I didn't look at the heating and cooling strategy, did you?
It's a heat pump system. This is what they're doing to cool the gear oil. And then they've got a separate loop up top that's going through the inverter module, right, to cool the inverter separately. So it is a heat pump system. They've got a few chillers up top there. But as we had mentioned before, not super integrated, right? There's no super bottle, there's no manifold.
Yeah, everything's just
kind of piecemealed together.
Yeah.
As we go rearward, I've watched or read a few different articles and watched a few different things, right? A lot of folks are talking about the space between the trailing end of this cradle and the battery pack, and they're talking about, well, maybe that's a flexing strategy in order for this platform to accommodate more energy. I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so either.
What I think they're doing is intra-pack, right? They're keeping this whole periphery of the pack the same. And they're just deciding to either give another module for more range or take modules or space within the pack away. The reason that you're not going to get into this zone is then all of the structures, starting from the initial impact, have a structural connection right to the battery pack. You want air gaps. You want free crush space.
Yeah, you want to disconnect between what's going on here and what might go on there.
Correct.
And quite frankly, if we look up at this attachment right here, this is another deal where it looks to me like if you punched it in the front, it's going south. This is going to go down. That is going to want to swing, and this is going to want to stay where it is, and it's going to pivot down again. So you've got strategies above and below in order to prevent any intrusion into the battery pack, which again looks unusual because look at that draft angle. That's not for releasing from, this is going to be a good one to tear to pieces. There's an awful lot of things here that, again, this is my absolute first time looking in here. There's a lot of things that I don't quite understand right now, but I'm sure once we get it torn to pieces, it's going to make sense. Toyota, now that they're moving in the right direction, Toyota makes a lot of good moves, no question about it. I wish they would have done something earlier, not because I own stock or something, but Toyota just had bad direction. Let's move here. What do you make of that?
I make of that a lot of layers. So
I don't understand it.
So this is a aluminum lower closeout. Above that, they've got the base of the battery pack, and then the cooling plates are on top of that. Or the cooling plates are on top of this, then there's a layer of the battery pack, and then the cells sit on top of that. So when we talk about thermal efficiency, you want to mitigate as much material, medium, or air gap between the batteries themselves and the cooling plates. And what I'm seeing here, based on some of the cutaway images that are out there in the public sphere, they've got a lot of material that they're trying to get through between their cooling and or their heating, depending on the mode, and the battery. So I'd be very interested to know what type of heat rejection numbers they're getting between those cooling plates.
Okay, so heat rejection is great if you're hot. What happens when you're cold?
Right.
Now it's coming to bite you in the ass, and that is not going to be your best friend. So I look at this, and if this isn't for some kind of crash worthiness aspect, I'm saying I see a lot of bolts that I don't need, and I'm just wondering why they did what they did here. So again, I think that our next teardown should be one of these, just to see where Toyota is and find out, you know,
right.
And then we can maybe guess at where they will wind up or where they want to be.
Yeah, I find it super fascinating that on the outboard side, they went with large multi-cell aluminum extrusions, which is what these guys are, bolted to the side of the housing. But then for cross-car energy absorption, instead of welding on more aluminum extrusions or doing a cast cross member, which many of their competitors are doing, they've got these probably 2 millimeter thick, roughly stamped steel W sections going cross car, which these fasteners are tying into for that updated probably 2.0 side pole impact from IAHS. It's a difficult test to pass, but this is one dialogue we always get in with respect to Toyota. Since we do what I would say is activity-based costing, every time you pick up a fastener, you have to associate the labor and time, the different motions, the quality burden associated with all of those things. Having more panels and more fasteners is not always a good thing.
No,
in fact, I would say it's never a good thing.
Yeah. So anyway, swing over here and have a look at this rocker here. And I can't hold this for very long, it's plastic. But anyway, you can see that this is an extrusion, and I've never seen anything quite like that. So they take an extrusion, they chop it on the edge. So that's a fair amount of machining and whatnot. And this is what's giving them the strength from side intrusion, at least at the, oh, now it doesn't want to come back down. Oh, son of a gun, well, I wish I would have known that trick. Anyhow, so this is kind of interesting. I haven't seen anything from Toyota ever before like that, have you?
No.
No, I think that's brand spanking new.
For sure. Yep.
Okay, so I'm looking at the rear suspension, and I don't see much here either. That's different. Yeah, I don't see anything that I can say, oh, look, that's brand spanking new, because there's nothing here that jumps out at me unless I'm missing something.
Steel links, stamped steel welded rear cradle. This is obviously the all-wheel drive version. They've got a little NVH accommodation here, a little polyurethane foam. We call them diapers or NVH pads around the motor there for some of those high frequencies and a little protection. But yeah, nothing new in the rear suspension. It's twist blade, right, versus twist beam, which helps you get some more packaging space for the battery, and the X direction are coming rearward. But you know, even though they did that, they really didn't seem to capitalize a whole lot on additional energy packaging space, right? This is not battery here.
There's nothing there. I think I can push that up, maybe a little bit. But anyways, I already stuck my finger in here once. I'm not doing it again. But there's not much going on.
Right.
There's nothing there that I could feel.
Yep. So really, this valance is protecting some electrical connections on the back side of the battery going to the motor and the inverter. But really, it's just an aero skirt, right, to cover those and keep that airstream nice and smooth on the underside of the vehicle here. Yeah.
Yeah, not much jumps out at me as being wildly exciting. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah. No, the only thing I would say, Sandy, is I don't know what your thoughts are, but like I can't help but go back to some of these sections and looking at all these different layers of steel.
Yeah.
I would like to see in the next iteration from Toyota some integration of these weldments, but definitely on the battery pack, right? You can even see on the leading edge all the individual layers, right? Top layer of battery pack, lower layer of battery pack, leading edge reinforcement that's multi-piece, clamshell welded over itself, all right here, this seam. And I think there's a lot of examples competitively in the marketplace or concepts that I think we would propose to save them some cost.
Okay, so let's talk about a few things that I do like, or do and don't like. First off, I love these fasteners. These fasteners are as good as it gets. what do you call it, washer is included in the bolt, and it's a hex-set external, which means that it's going to last a long time. That's the good news. Bad news is, why are there so many of them? Holy doodle. I mean, I want to be the fastener supplier to, and here's a dog point on that stud, or maybe it's I'm hoping it's a stud. Anyway, there's lots and lots of them here. I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, they're going to get it. Oh, and here's, they were going to have a hole here too, but they changed their mind. Yeah, maybe they couldn't buy enough fasteners. But anyways, at the end of the day, too many fasteners is what comes to mind, which means that the labor costs go up. They are beautiful. I mean, you don't get better than what I'm looking at. But at the end of the day, to me, it's just added weight. There's lots of ways of making this happen without a bunch of bolts. So,
yeah, all in all, Sandy, I don't know. I was excited to see it. It's the first off of the e-TNGA platform. Yeah. Some of the choices they made are interesting for sure, but I'm excited to get into the battery pack and see how it's put together.
What's going wrong here? How come? Was people poking around here? Or something?
Yeah. Someone let me loose earlier with a screwdriver and a socket.
No. So now it's broken because of you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's put that back on. I'm taking this home tonight, so I'll be able to tell you what I think tomorrow.
Fair enough.
Oh, this side's loose too. Okay, so anyways, this is, like I say, Toyota's first venture in, and beyond zero it is. So any parting words? Corey?
No, I just
Corey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corey, I'm taller, just remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
He's taller now, and me as well. Anyhow, I don't know. You know, when the Bolt first came out, nobody else was around to compare it to. I thought it was okay. This is not a brand new style of car. It's been around for a bit. I would have thought that I was expecting actually some more excitement and whatnot. Yeah. But the good news is, boy, if we did a redesign on this, Toyota be taking bags of money home. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to Munro Live. So in Corey's behalf, I'd say, if you like what you saw, click the subscribe button, buy some swag, whatever, the other things that Corey normally says, and we'll see you in the next video.